Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site that covers the Arizona Cardinals, of course. And with me for the first, after a week off, I promise I intended on recording some shows, but I got lazy. And so when Seth was off last week visiting his son, now we're back. We'll have 3 shows this week. Seth Cox, my co-host from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. Seth joins me as is episode 756. And this show's all about Kyler Murray because we're recording on a Tuesday night. We got the news of what is happening with Kyler Murray as we predicted for months. The Cardinals could not trade Kyler Murray. They will give him his outright release on March 11th when the new league year begins next week. And with all the salary cap, that means $36.8 million in 2026 guarantees that the Cardinals are on the hook for, although truly they will be on the hook for 35.5 because he'll be able to sign with the team for the league minimum. They have offset language, so he's not going to get more than his $36.8 million. And so that's just how that will work out. But we do know, what we know is this, and we're presuming it's a post-June 1st designation because of things that have been worded. Tom Pelissero said because of per league rule, they can't release him till March 11th. They could have, if they were doing a standard release, they could have released him today. Per league rule, that means it's going to be a post-June 1st designation. John Gambadoro said that the Cardinals will absorb most of the cap hit in 2026. That means a post-June 1st designation because if they were not, they would absorb all the cap hit in 2026. And what the cap implications mean for that is that his contract originally was going to count $52.6 million against the cap. They have $54.7 million that they must account for between previously paid bonuses and these $36.8 million in guarantees due this year. And that means a straight release would mean instead of a $52.6 million cap hit, for Kyler's contract, it would be $54.7 million in dead money, so a net cap loss of $2 million. There was some suggestions. I believe it was Mike Jurecki and both and Gambo as well, both mistakenly said that the Cardinals will only have $2 million in cap space left, and that is incorrect. They still have their $30+ million in cap space available. And that will go up. So they still can do what they want in free agency. Now, if it's a post-June 1st designation, they will carry that $52.6 million cap hit all the way till June 2nd, then gain $5 million in about $5.1 million in cap space. So they will save about $5 million against the cap. They will incur $47.1 million, about $47 million in dead money charges this year, and then the remaining $7.2 million of dead money will count in 2027. So that's the accounting behind it. Now, Seth, what we want to talk about first, our reaction and what we think of what we think of the Kyler Murray era for the Arizona Cardinals. What was your reaction first and foremost when you heard the news?
I mean, like you said, we knew it was coming. There was never a question that it was happening. And now he gets a fresh start away from a organization that is just genuinely one of the worst in all of pro sports. So, it's one of those things that he he needed the break away from this. He's been part of it. And you and I talked about it quite a bit, right? Like, he is a guy that, when people say things like, oh, well, he just never lived up to it, it's like, I look at some of the numbers, and I know people want to get on the, like, well, he never did this, never did that, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. But you look at certain aspects of it, and the first thing that you look at is like 33 and 38 when he played since 2000, 5 and 25 when he didn't play. Like,
every ounce of success. Now, people say, well, they didn't really have success. Well, I'm talking about winning and losing. Any ounce of success that the Cardinals have had since he was drafted in 2019, we can firmly put on his shoulders. It was because of him that the Cardinals had any success, because you take him off the field. And while he didn't elevate his team, the Cardinals, to what we wanted them, what we expected, you know what? They were hot garbage without him. Kyler on the field, competitive team. Kyler off the field, hot garbage. And if Kyler was anything but electric, elite, perfect, they had no chance of winning basically his entire time, except for 2021, when everything else was working well, and it happened to be his best stretch of football.
Yeah, and you watch it, and you see what happened. This was just, a situation where nobody, people like to go, oh, look at Kurt Warner, look at Carson Palmer. It's like, well, Kurt Warner's a Hall of Famer. Carson Palmer won a single more playoff game than Kyler Murray. So I guess, that makes him leaps and bounds better, right? Like, that's how it gets judged. And the reality of the situation is as much as we were excited for Cliff, and we're hopeful with Jonathan Gannon, the reality of the situation is you look at it, they've never had a coaching situation that was as strong as Bruce Arians, like, ever. And since that time, they've gone back to being the same old Cardinals. And even at the end, they kind of went back to being mostly the same old Cardinals, right? So, like, that's where you look at it. And you just hope to see that there's success there, because what we're going to see after this is really is going to be really interesting to watch moving forward. And because the names, the potential money, like, all of that stuff is just, it's kind of crazy to think about, right?
It is. Now, for me, when it comes to the Kyler Murray era, it is ultimately a disappointment, because mostly everyone had Patrick Mahomes type expectations. And that is unfair, but he looked like he could be someone like Patrick Mahomes. And the arc of his career began Offensive Rookie of the Year, Pro Bowler. He looked like, for a 5-game stretch in 2020, looked like an MVP. For half of the season in 2021, looked like an MVP. And the problem was, when we saw a glimpse of what he could be, and then he never reached that again. And they made the postseason, and then it was just a mess. But it was a disappointment. But he's still a top 3, top 4 quarterback in this team's history. Although, if we have to grade, I was asked on a radio spot today that I had on AM 1060. I was asked to grade it. I mean, I have to grade the 7 years as a C, because we saw a glimpse. He was not an abject failure. And so it is firmly a C. And I kind of equated it to having the honors student who it gets put in a group project with the worst students, and he couldn't elevate everyone to, and it's not quite fair to call him, like, because he he had his problems as well. He wasn't perfect. There were things he didn't do. He didn't develop as quickly as some way. He's not. He doesn't elevate guys like we thought he might. He's not a dynamic leader. He's a leader in his own way, but he's not a dynamic leader. He's not a rah-rah guy. But yeah, so it's ultimately a disappointment, but it wasn't a failure. Like, he's still one of the best quarterbacks the Cardinals have ever had. But he was so polarizing from day one. It's a sad spot to be in because of what he has accomplished and the expectations he faced since day one. Because there are so many people who from day one have hated the Kyler Murray pick. There are a bunch of fans who have wanted him to fail. There are media members who have wanted him to fail since day one.
Well, and that's just it. They people don't like that he's kind of a reclusive guy, right? Like, he's not open. He's not a guy that really does a whole lot, like, with the media. Like, he does everything he's required to, right? Like, he's never missed things or done, but he doesn't give anything extra. And the people that don't like him, it always comes from like things like, oh, he plays video games and doesn't study. It's like, that's not true at all. But like, you create a narrative and then on the internet, and then it just goes that way, and people are like, well, it was in a contract. It was like, yeah, because their owner is an idiot. Like,
we went over this before. We went over this years ago.
Right.
Bidwill is like late to the part. Like, he's part doesn't care what people think, and then part cares very much what people think. I don't know.
And so, like, when people talk about like, oh, he's lazy, I'm like, I know people that work with him, like, train him. I'm like, all they talk about is how obsessive this dude is. Like, but that's the thing, he doesn't post about it, right? Like, he's not out there like doing all that stuff and like doing it for the media. So there were guys that just had this problem with him from the beginning. And it was just always interesting to see that, because he didn't endear himself to certain people.
He didn't care about the middle age and above. The young people liked him. He liked the young people, but the middle-aged, like from the 35 plus, the 40 plus, we need a Carson Palmer. No, he was never about those guys, and that's okay. Honestly, it's okay. Yeah. Coming up next on the Rise of C-Red podcast, Best Our Cardinals Talk on the Web. So let's talk about where does he end up and how's he going to do. That's coming up next on Rise of C-Red. We're back on the Rise of C-Red podcast, Best Our Cardinals Talk on the Web, talking about Kyler Murray's release that's coming next week. He's going to be able to sign with any team. And it's what I love about this situation for him is that now it is not a financial thing. Okay. This is for everyone involved. It comes down to need and fit. So a team that needs him, a team that fits him, that will be the perfect situation. And there are 5 teams kind of right off the rip that we can look at as potential landing spots. We've got Minnesota, where they've got JJ McCarthy, but they're not banking on him. You've got the Atlanta Falcons with Michael Penix Jr. Coming back from an ACL, and they're going to release Kirk Cousins. Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa is going to be released, and they've got a new coaching staff there. You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers with the future of Aaron Rodgers in the balance. They could go again with that veteran like Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers the last couple of years. Then you've got the Jets, who are a mess, but could viably go there. Those are the 5 teams that make the most sense. Where do you think he ends up?
The people that I've spoken to, the number one team that like everybody talks about is Minnesota. I don't know if that's insight or them, kind of wish casting, but that's where a lot of people see him fitting and see what he can do there. Because they kind of have a ready-made, system in place. I know they're going to be letting go of Aaron Jones here, but they've got weapons, they've got different things and obviously a quarterback guy, Kevin O'Connell. I talked with people
and a history in the Vikings of veteran quarterbacks coming in and just being great. Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, Randall Cunningham. We're talking 25 years of quarterbacks going in and being really good.
And when
Keenum, guys.
Right. When you look at it, I talked with guys about the Atlanta Falcons. That's an interesting one because of the Kevin Stefanski, Drew Petzing thing. I'm not sure if there's like any type of like bad relationship there. So it'll be interesting to point out. But the interesting thing is, like, you look at the names, right? And there are teams that have really just not had a lot of success. And so you wonder how much does Kyler that want to be part of that again, right? Like I don't think people realize that
I don't see him with the Jets. The Jets is a quarterback graveyard. They're as messy as the Cardinals. He wants to go. He's going to want to go to an organization. So I guess for me, there are two organizational fits, and that would be Minnesota and Pittsburgh, right? They have the respectful. They have good organizations, and Pittsburgh has a history of at minimum competitiveness, and Minnesota, you've got the best talent and the team that is the most ready to win right now, right?
Right. And that's the thing, is like, does he want to be part of another dysfunctional organization? And that's just a reality. So we'll see how it all, breaks down from here. But, Minnesota makes a lot of sense. Atlanta makes some sense. I've heard people that really like his fit with Todd Monken and Cleveland. I don't know if that's what he wants to do, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Cleveland is, I hadn't considered Cleveland, but like we're talking about dysfunctional organizations, like my prediction, and this is not just, you've heard whispers, I've heard whispers. Jeremy Fowler came out and said that Kyler Murray and Geno Smith are going to be the Vikings tier 1 of quarterbacks. I think Josh Weinfuss once reported recently that Kyler's camp is saying Minnesota's a bet. So it feels like that's the match there, and that you're going to see one of two things. You're going to get to see him compete against a guy like JJ McCarthy, and that'll, he's competitive. You've got the talent there. You've got a defense there. Now, granted, Aaron Jones on the way out. They're looking to trade Jonathan Grenard. That said, that is a division you can compete in. Now, Atlanta's intriguing because the pieces in place. You have a new head coach. Now, is there bad blood between him and Petzing? If so, would Stefanski believe in him? But Kyler, everything that Kyler said was great about Petzing. And so we'll see from there. But they got Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. The talent is there. And we know that Atlanta has looked like a team who could be good, but they've been a quarterback short for years. And Kyler's the type of quarterback who would put them over. And it's the freaking NFC South. It wouldn't take much to win that division.
Well, and the other thing is that you have to remember, and this is you had an organization that it almost felt like didn't believe in Kyler, right? Like whether it was, well, let's be honest, we know who it was, because the fact that he sent off a big good luck to Jonathan Gannon and then hasn't said 2 words about the Cardinals until today, which was very, I thought heartfelt, with a nice little.
I think it's honest. he wants to win. He wasn't just coasting. The dude is a competitor.
Well, that, and I did like the slight dig of 77 years of failure. Like that was good. That was a nice one because that's the thing is like it was the GM and the owner that had issues with him. Meanwhile, the head coach did not, and they for better or worse, they tied the head coach's hands to make sure that he couldn't make him the starter once again by putting them on IR. So I mean, that's just and then the irony of the whole thing, and you talked about it off the air, Josh Weinfuss, basically confirming that Ben Albright, who a lot of people didn't like or don't like or whatever, was 100% right. Nobody thought Jonathan Gannon was done. But I think when a coach feels like he's being backstabbed, whether it's with the OC having to move on from the OC, whether it's with the quarterback situation, what he feels like is going down, that becomes just an untenable situation. So that's just one of those situations, and it just it's interesting to really kind of look at, because I think if you get a guy, and again, we won't say Kevin O'Connell will do it, we won't say Todd Monken will do it, but like if you get a guy that he believes in, like he did Jonathan Gannon, we know things went sour with Cliff, but like the way Jonathan Gannon and he felt about each other,
They believed in each other. The competitiveness that they both. Gannon ran like the players really. The problem was they Gannon didn't know how to help them win games.
Right. And so like that's what I just kind of look at is like if he finds a coach that brings that and kind of what you said, right? Like that brings that grind back out of him. I mean, all that stuff from Josh Weinfuss was just so interesting to see.
Yeah, the reputation online that Kyler is a lazy, poor leader, but everyone in the league says number one quarterback available with the bullet. They love his competitive fire. Like there is a huge amount of respect for Kyler Murray around the league, and the fact that people didn't like him, it's got to be because of the organization. Sadly.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. You just have to like see how this all works out and where he ends up, because I do think that he is I think if he gets to the right spot, it will end up being really, a really strong fit.
Yes. Coming on next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the web. We'll wrap things up talking about what are they going to do at quarterback now. That's coming on next on Rise of Sierra. We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Best Our Cardinals Talk on the web. One piece out the door. Okay, Kyler Murray's out the door. That leaves them Jacoby Brissett and Keaton Slovis. What we now need to see, what is going to happen in the quarterback room. Now we have our next episode that we're going to do is get the free agency preview, so we'll be talking about this again. But what do you think is going to happen? I believe ultimately Jacoby Brissett's going to get traded. I think they'll trade him to the Jets. I'm guessing to the Jets, maybe Atlanta. But the Jets would be a good fit. They're not going to win. Jacoby doesn't care if he wins. But he's a good caretaker quarterback there for Frank Reich. And I think the Cardinals start anew. And then you could do a number of things. But do you think Jacoby's here going to stay for this year, or do you think he gets dealt?
I think he gets dealt. I just don't see the way it fits in what Mike LaFleur's offense is, and like the fact that they were 1-11 with him is like it's really, really difficult to keep them, to keep like. I just don't think people realize how bad 1-11 is. I mean, it's easy to say it, right? But like 1-11 is just such a bad.
It wasn't just 1-11 bad. It was a 1-11, and 6 of the final 9 losses were by 3 scores or more.
And not just that, Jess, but think about this. They were blown out, right? They were blown out in 6 games. He won 1 game. When he had a chance to compete, they went 0-5. So
and we've documented that there were in 5 games with 6 opportunities. He had the ball at the end of regulation or in overtime with the chance to make a game-winning drive, and he failed in every attempt.
And so, like, you just look at it, and that's what happens. So, we'll see how this all kind of plays out. So we'll see how it all goes from there, and where the next fit is. But I mean, it's interesting how the fact that, like, you and I've talked about this, the fact that people look at it and go, well, he never had a winning record, and you go, okay, but they're literally they literally are 5-25. That's a 167 win percentage without him. So being a 468 or 67 win percentage team, yes, under 500. I think all of us agree, not ideal. But, like, if you can't see the difference, and you talked about at the jump, the competitive difference, then like, you and I can't help them.
Oh, you can't. So free agency, the names that come up: Jimmy Garoppolo, Malik Willis. You've got guys like Geno Smith. Kirk Cousins is going to be. Then you've got Aaron Rodgers. I know Aaron Rodgers is not going to come here. I think there is one move that puts the Cardinals firmly into relative where they are relevance, and that is Aaron Rodgers. But I think it's Pittsburgh's bust. In free agency, do you think? Well, I guess for the draft, do you think they're going to go free agent, free agent draft, or is it going to be they're going to sign to keep? We both think Jacoby's, but maybe they keep Jacoby, sign a guy, and then draft. And the interesting one is the thought maybe Ty Simpson trading back in the first round. Or are we looking at Ty Simpson, or are we going to be looking at Carson Beck in the draft?
Well, here's my thing. So, like, I see these, like, takes about Ty Simpson. I get it. Right now, with what their situation is, you have to decide. Like, you have to play all out aspects. But, like, so if they go with Malik Willis, right, $30+ million a year for 155 career pass attempts, yeah, I think it's a great idea. By the way, like, you can't draft a guy in the first or even second round, right? Because, like, at that point, you have to do what you never fully did with Kyler, and that's invest in surrounding him. Like, I know people will be like, "Oh, you drafted a offensive tackle in the first round." It's like, yeah, how many offensive tackles or how many offensive linemen did they draft in the first 3 rounds with Kyler? It didn't happen until Monty got here. You and I've talked about that. How many wide receivers did they invest in? It was always these second round gadget player types, right? Like, and again, it is what it is. So, like, the investment was never there. So, like, if you're going to put $30+ million into Malik Willis, then by God, you better invest in Malik Willis. And this is something you and I can talk about later, but, like, there's a clear plan if you sign Malik Willis. Now, it probably only gets you to 8 wins, but at least there's a clear plan if you sign Malik Willis.
Yes.
And, if you go Ty Simpson, you can't obviously go Ty Simpson at 3. And you're taking a risk.
Could you imagine a quarterback room of Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Ty Simpson?
I mean, it inspires confidence, Jess. I mean, because you'll definitely have a.
And here's the thing: like the idea of Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo in 2026, when that was the New England Patriots, first 4 games of 2016 when Tom Brady was suspended. So welcome to the backup plan for the New England Patriots a decade ago.
Well, and that's just the Arizona Cardinals, right? It's like, hey, let's invest in 2 34-year-olds with our head coach that's the same age. I know he's a little bit older, but like, let's just invest in let's just have peers of our head coach be our quarterbacks, right? So, and that's what people don't get. Like, you mentioned Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, I get it. And by the way, Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett, even at their age, are Aaron Rodgers. They are not. But like, you can, like, I get the idea of like, oh, you just want to continue to stay relevant, but that's also called purgatory, and that was the whole complaint of Kyler, right? Like, he was going to only get you 7-8 wins a season, and you needed. So like, why would you then go back to that or worse? Like, I just don't think people understand how bad 1-11 is. Like,
yeah, it's rough.
That's, and so, you look at it, and I know people will go, well, they were competitive in a couple of those games. It's like, okay, so we weren't happy going 2-3 and every single one of those games being 1-score games, but we were happy going 1-11 and 5 of those games being 1-score losses, but 6 of those games being
abject, disgusting 3+ score blowouts.
So like, that's the thing. So, that's Jacoby Brissett, that's Jimmy Garoppolo. So like,
Jimmy Garoppolo. Here's the thing with Jimmy Garoppolo: he's good, but if he starts, he might last 3 games.
Yeah, he might last 3 games, and the last time he was 500 was 2023, right? And by the way, that was for the Las Vegas Raiders at 32, so he'll be 35 this year. He went 3-3. He had 7 touchdowns and 9 interceptions and got benched. I think he also got hurt, but he got benched. And by the way, like, people can say like, oh, well, they're not very good. Well, no,
neither are the Cardinals.
Well, and to be fair though, they went 5-5 with Aiden O'Connell. So again, like, when you want to compare things, like I know this is just beating a dead horse, but like, Aiden O'Connell was 5-5, Jimmy Garoppolo was 3-3. So like, at that point, you're like, okay, this is the mid-off, but at least it's a competitive, like, they're similar, right? The Cardinals are like, or if the Cardinals run back Jacoby Brissett, you're literally going, we went 1-11 with them. What's, at least we don't have the guy that keeps us around 500, like, and
at least we like him.
Yeah, right, exactly. At least Jacoby, gives us a good soundbite. I mean, he might basically say, yeah, I don't care if we lose a bunch, I'm playing, but
my gosh.
So yeah, so I mean, we'll see what happens, but like, I mean, Willis is the closest thing to staying relevant. Would you not agree?
Yes.
Immediately.
And there's a little bit of excitement to it because he's young. There's upside.
Yeah, he's got some flashy throws. Here's my thing. If we were talking about Malik Willis like we were talking about Sam Darnold 2 years ago, 1,000%, $10 million out the door. Good luck. I'm all in. We're talking triple that. And by the way, when Sam Darnold signed that contract with Minnesota, he had already in his career thrown over 2,000 passes, like right around 2,000 passes.
Cardinals are going to have fun. It's going to be great. This is going to be great. I promise.
Yeah, Malik Willis has thrown 155 career passes. 155. So like you're basically like, hey, I'll give you half if you give him the 70 million that the conversation's about, right? It's like, yeah, I'll give you $500,000 per pass you've attempted in your career. So it's definitely going to be interesting. Here's my thing, and I get that people disagree with this take. I would rather watch Malik Willis succeed at anywhere else for 35 million a year, 30 to 35 million a year, than take that swing. That's just my opinion. Now, if they do that and they sign him, I will 1000% hope that he works out here and that he is a very talented quarterback that ends up, being the guy finally for the long term. But that's kind of how I feel about the whole situation, is that I would rather somebody else take that swing at that cost. Again, 10 million, hell, you could talk me into it for 15 million. But 30 million a year, that's just so much.
It is. And let's save more quarterback talk for our first free agency preview, which is our next episode. So we'll wrap this edition up of the Rise Up Sierra podcast, Best Our Cardinals Talk on the Web, which has been our Kyler Murray release one. We've got 2 more shows. We're previewing free agency, different positions. We're going to start with offense on our next show. Until then, that's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.